Hey everyone, it's Alexi Huzas here from Exile Accelerator. In this video, I'm going to take you through the 5 stages that you need to go through in order to generate a full-time income as a filmmaker. Now, before I dive in and get started, I do want to let you know that spots are available for our Producing Accelerator program that helps filmmakers like you consistently finance, produce, and distribute your own films. So if you're interested in hearing more about that program, stick around until the end of this video. And for the best filmmaking advice, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit the bell to be notified when we post a video. Okay, so the first stage is to, of course, start by making short films. And so you want to do this really as early as possible, as soon as you have the technical skills to be able to make short films. A lot of people will do this at university or at film school. If you didn't go to those types of institutions, then you're going to need to learn those skills yourself and start making short films. The best advice I can give you for making short films in this early stage is really to spend as much time as you can researching about and learning about filmmakers that have made the types of films that you want to make and look at their early work. Make sure you're immersing yourself in film theory, watching films, basically soaking up as much knowledge and theory as you can while you're at university or at film school, or while you're in those early stages, because it really is the best time to do those things. Once you start getting into the practical side, there's a lot of time that's required to do those things, and so you have less time to be watching movies, to be researching, to be reading. So spend as much time as you can doing those things. And then my advice for making the short films is make those on as small a budget as possible, so that A, you can actually make those films, right? You can guarantee that the film's going to go into production. But B, it's also going to allow you to start learning how to become resourceful. And so really if you can make a high number of short films in a short period of time, then I think that's a great thing. If you're making short films and it's taking you a long time to do that, and then you're spending years just making short films, I think that can really work against you. And I think at that point, you're better off moving straight into feature films. So keep the budgets low so that you can keep getting the films into production. Start working with people that you want to work with. Start forming those long-term relationships from an early stage. If you can make a short film that is a proof of concept for a longer form project like a feature film, then I also highly recommend doing that. It's certainly not something that's required. I wouldn't do that if you have an idea for a short film that makes an even better short film. I would stick to that. But if you're not sure which short film to make and you have an idea for a feature film, then I do recommend making that short film as a proof of concept for a feature film. So that's stage 1. A lot of you are probably in that stage or you've passed that stage, but there are some tips for you to take away. Stage 2 is to make your first feature film. So once you've gone through that process of making a few shorts, honing that craft, learning about the film industry and about filmmakers that you admire, the next stage is to really just bite the bullet and make a feature film. Now, what I highly recommend that you do during this stage is that you finance something that's going to be achievable. Right? It's not going to take you years to do. It's not going to be something that's out of your reach. It's something that's achievable for you to do at that point in time. You get the best team together that you can, and you just go out there and make it. And really, the faster that you can make a feature film, in my view, the better that you're going to be as against your peers. So the sooner that you can go through that process of making a film from start to finish, the sooner that you're going to develop this wealth of experience and knowledge that you just don't get when you're making short films. When it comes to generating an income at this time, my advice is to either work inside or outside of the film industry. So at this point, I actually don't think it matters whether you're working in the film industry or you're not working in the film industry. What matters most is that you're earning an income that allows you to then take the risk to go and make a feature film. So my advice would be to work, full time at this point, be working 5 days a week and use all the energy that you have to work on the feature film on weekends, during your lunch break, and on the weekends. The reason that I recommend this is because at this point it's really important for you to have a stable income. It's important for you to have some funds available if you need them to put towards making the film. So whether it's working in the film industry or not working, or working in another industry, it really doesn't matter. You just want to optimize for something that's stable and for something that's going to bring in enough income for you to have some surplus income to spend on the film if you need to. So that's my advice for this stage of getting to a point where you're generating a full-time income or a full-time living from being a filmmaker. Okay, so stage 3, this is where things get really interesting. So at this point, you've made your first feature film, you're working in the industry or you're working in another industry, and you need to get to that next stage of your career. So this third stage is really about starting to make more feature films and immersing yourself in the film industry. So if you were working outside of the film industry, now is the time to get into the film industry and really immerse yourself in the industry and start learning about all the different aspects of filmmaking and particularly film producing. This is really important at this stage because if you're going to get to the next stage, you really need to master film production. And when I'm talking about film production, I really mean all aspects of that. So development, financing, production, post, marketing, distribution. If you can find work at a production company or a distribution company or a sales company, something like that, that would be a great place to cut your teeth and learn about that side of the business. At the same point or at the same stage, you also want to be working on your next feature films. Now, there's no hard and fast rule of like how many films you should be making at a time or how long you should spend in this stage. But if you're going to be working full time in the film industry, then you're likely going to again need to make films in your spare time, or something that you might be able to negotiate, particularly in this kind of workplace climate, is some flexibility with your role. So, could you work 4 days a week or could you work part-time? Is your employer going to be flexible? Like, can making a film be part of your negotiations when you're trying to find a job? Because what you want to do at this stage is start upskilling as a filmmaker and on the production side, and use those skills to start working on more feature films and also bigger budget feature films. So you want to start kind of progressing up. And if you can even make one feature film a year during this stage, I think that's a really good target to have. If you can scale up quicker, then great, go for it. But if you're sticking to around a film a year, being really careful about the films that you choose to work on, making sure that they have the best chance of getting into production, making sure they have the best chance of being successful, then I highly recommend that that's what you do during this stage. And if you want some advice on how to do that, check out my video that talks about focusing on one key project at a time. If you can do that during this stage, then you're going to have the best outcome from this particular stage. So that's what I recommend at this point. You're going to immerse yourself in the film industry, learn about the business side, learn about the production side, then use those skills to keep working on feature films, to keep getting them into production, and hopefully keep working on bigger and bigger projects. The The next stage is to really throw yourself into filmmaking full time. And the best way to do this is to start co-producing, executive producing, and producing your own films, but working with other filmmakers as an EP. The next stage is to really throw yourself at it full time. And in order to do that, you're going to need to start co-producing or executive producing or associate producing other people's projects, because at this stage, if you're going to leave a secure job to go at it full time, you need volume, because you're likely not working on budgets that are big enough to sustain a full-time living. And so the only way to deal with that issue is to overcome it through volume. And in order to generate volume, the best thing that you can do is start working with other filmmakers on other projects, because it is really difficult to get a high volume of films financed that are your own each year. And that's because just of the amount of time it takes to finance a film. And there's only so many of those that you can be doing at one time. So by leveraging other people's projects, by leveraging your experience, your skills, your knowledge that you've started to build up over the years, you can now start to add value to other people's projects. And this is really the best way to get through this stage of the production process. And this is a stage that I'm in right now. And so really the best advice that I can give you is find filmmakers, find projects that align with the types of films that you want to make. Because if you're getting on board a project as a co-producer or as an EP, that's a long-term commitment. It's a long-term relationship. So you want to make sure that you're working with really great people that you get along with, and you're going to enjoy that process. So that's how you get through the fourth stage. That's what it looks like. At that point, it's really about scaling up, and it is about volume, and it is about turning it into a full-time career. And the best way that you can do that, like I said, is just to have that volume and have those projects that you're working on that allows you to start really just going at it full time. One thing that I want to mention that I don't think I mentioned earlier is at any point in these stages, one of the best things that you can do to kind of help keep income coming in is either A, get a job at night working in a restaurant or a bar or something like that, or consult. Consulting is a really good way to leverage your time. It's a really good way to not have to work at a place full time, but it allows you to keep generating an income. And so even in this stage 4, that's essentially what we're talking about. You know, whether it's titled as an EP or a co-producer or an associate producer, what you're essentially doing is you're consulting on other people's projects, or you're getting engaged as a contractor on other people's projects. And so that's a really good way to keep generating an income. In the fourth stage, it's absolutely vital, but it's definitely something that you can utilize in those earlier stages. And the fifth and final stage, and really the only stage where you're really generating an income from being a filmmaker full time, is to start working with major studios or streaming platforms, or to set up your own independent film studio. So let's talk about those two options. The first is to be working with major studios and streaming platforms. And the reason this forms part of this stage is because once you're working with those types of companies, the budgets that you're going to be working on are much larger. And so the fee that you generate as a filmmaker, as a producer, or as a director, or as a writer on those projects is going to be enough to help sustain your living, to sustain you full time. Now, when I say major studios, that can include working with like mini majors, and it certainly does now include working with streaming platforms. The other option that I mentioned, and I think this one is much more difficult, is to have your own independent film studio where you're basically developing, financing, producing, and maybe even distributing your own films. Now, there's not many filmmakers that do this, and there's not many filmmakers that do this successfully. Probably the best example of someone that has done this really successfully, or two examples, is Jason Blum from Blumhouse and Tyler Perry. And I've mentioned those two in previous videos as well, but they're likely the two best examples of filmmakers or film producers that have created their own studios where now they're not relying on any external financing and they're able to just focus on that full time. But really, you have two options in this stage, and you can go in either direction. If you start to work with streaming platforms and studios, like I said, you're going to have much more resources to work with. You may have less control over the work because you're going to be working with a lot more people. On the other side, if you try and set up or you start an independent studio, you're definitely going to have less resources at the start. So that's going to have to be an issue that you try and overcome. But you are going to have much more control over the creative. And so it's really your decision at this point which way to go. But hopefully through the previous 4 stages, you have built up enough knowledge, enough expertise. You've really started to master your craft. And so that allows you to progress into this 5th and final stage. And these 5 stages, there's really no time period that I can put on these. I'm not, it's going to be different for everyone in terms of how long that takes. But just from personal experience, it's taken me the better part of 5 to 6 years to get to stage 4. And I'm certainly not at stage 5 yet. So really to get from that first stage to that final stage could take 10 years. It could take quicker for a lot of people. They make that first feature film, it goes gangbusters, and then they're straight into the studio system. So they pretty much skip stage 4. So there are different ways that this can happen, but I think that those are the stages that you have to work through to start generating that living and that full-time income from being a filmmaker. Okay, so that's it for this video. If you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel. Hit me up in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of the video. Let me know about what stage you're in right now and how you're trying to get to the next stage. Are there any issues or obstacles or challenges that you're trying to overcome to get there? As I mentioned at the start of this video, spots are available for our Producing Accelerator program that helps filmmakers consistently finance, produce, and distribute their films. And what that program does is it helps filmmakers start to get through these stages that I spoke about in this video. And really what we're focused on is stage 2 to stage 4. By learning the skills that we teach in the accelerator, you're going to have the skills that you need to get you through those stages, and you're going to have the support and the experience from filmmakers like me and the filmmakers that I work with that will help you get through those stages. So if you're interested in learning more about the accelerator, then head to the link in the description. You'll be able to check out our video that takes you through our producing system and how that works. And then you'll be invited to set up a time to speak with either me or a member of my team. And we'll be working out where you're at with your project right now, where you're trying to get to, and if we can help. If we can, we'll extend an invite to you to join the accelerator, and we'll work with you to get you through those stages. And as always, check out these videos next on how to up your filmmaking game.